Okay, let me just configure all my audio here. All right, so we've got my microphone on and my desktop audio on. I think we are live. Let me just make sure the stream catches up due to the delay.
The video there. Hopefully the audio is good.
There we go. Okay, so how's it going, everyone? We'll just ask everyone to just type in the chat very briefly if they can hear everyone. So Adam and James, if you guys want to just say something.
I can say some things. Why not? Hello. Hi, everyone.
Right. Testing.
I can't see.
No, hopefully there's no echo going on here.
All right, so we're going to proceed as if everyone can hear us, and we'll wait to get some response. But either way, welcome everyone to another live Q&A for Myth and Goal. Today, I'm here, Scottie, and the Sadlers are here as usual, but we are joined by a very special guest. We are joined by Mr. James Hewitt, the designer, or one of the designers of Myth and Goal. How's it going, James?
Hello. Doing good, thank you. How are you?
Pretty good. And how are the Sadlers doing over there?
Not too bad. It's kind of chilly down here.
Yeah, his basement's freezing, dude. I don't know. My feet are chilly.
You gotta get some slippers, man.
We're good.
Awesome. Well, yeah. So we're joined by James today, which is super exciting. We're gonna be able to poke his brain, ask him some questions, and all right, we got confirmation in the chat, by the way, that we're all good in terms of sound. Okay. So yeah, we're gonna let everyone go ahead and start asking their questions in the chat. We'll let those accumulate, and then we'll get to those. But for now, James, do you want to introduce yourself to those who might not know who you are and what you've worked on, that sort of thing?
Yeah, why not? Hello, I'm James, long-time listener, first-time caller. Actually, to be fair, that is actually quite true. I remember sitting in Games Workshops. I used to design games for Games Workshop back in the day. I remember sitting at my desk doing a late night, doing some prototyping for a game while watching you guys do a live stream, and I think you were prototyping Street Masters or something. Oh, wow. And I remember watching that, and it's like, yeah, see, I've been there. I was on the AutoQuest playtest group, never gave feedback, but it's fine. Hello, I'm James. I've been designing games for a living for about eight years now, I think. I'm not quite sure where that time's gone. And I've designed games for Games Workshop, Mantic Games, ThemeForge Games, various other people who I can't talk about yet because the games aren't out yet. And yeah, sure enough, here now with Blacklist. And my phone's on. I'm horribly unprofessional. I'm going to turn that off now. But yeah, I think, Adam, we had a chat about a year to 18 months ago, maybe. It was quite a while, wasn't it? And
That was
It's
I
been
think that was back when Fantasy Series 1 was on Kickstarter. I think I reached out and started chatting with you about some ideas. I played Blitz Bowl, and I was like, yes, this game's awesome.
and yeah, you were like, hey, come and work on this game with us, and it's been kind of just a wild ride since then. I've had great fun with this, and it's so cool to see it out there on Kickstarter now, making the money, getting the backers.
Yeah, well, we're glad that everyone seems to be enjoying it so far, and there's so much great stuff in there, and obviously you've done some tremendous work on the rules, if I may say so. I think it's great. I think it plays very well, and I've been playtesting it a lot, and I can't stop playing it. So that's a sign of a good game, in my opinion.
That's good.
So I guess speaking of Myth and Goal, it would probably be a good first question for you. Is there something that stands out to you about Myth and Goal that would somehow make it different than other games in the same genre, the fantasy sports genre?
Yeah, I mean, so for those that don't know, I've kind of had a hand in quite a few fantasy sports games over the past few years. So the first game I worked on in a professional capacity was Dreadball for Mantic Games. I worked on Blood Bowl. Oh, wait,
I think Dreadball was actually my first sports game that I played. And that before I even got into Blood Bowl. So that was
meant to be. It's like our paths are intertwined,
Destiny.
Yes, I did that. I worked on Blood Bowl when I was at Games Workshop, and then just after I left, I worked on Blitz Bowl, which was the sports game that they released through certain channels as like a kind of gateway, get you started kind of look at Blood Bowl. And so I've done a lot of sports games, right?
Right.
And so with Myth and Goal, I really wanted to do something different because I'm not interested in kind of treading the new ground necessarily. Treading the same old ground. I want to tread new ground. And so with Myth and Goal, I really wanted to kind of take the opportunity to pull back a little bit. Even though it's still a game which is, tactical, you're playing with your players on the field, you're trying to deal with the situation that's right in front of you. I wanted to put the player more in the position of like a team manager, like a bench manager, where you're looking at your team as a whole and thinking, right, who's fresh, who's ready to go in, who's been sloppy, who's got infractions built up, and have that influence your play across the whole game. And it's not a thing I've seen in tabletop sports games before. And I think it makes Myth and Goal feel quite different when you're playing it.
Right, yeah, and I like the fact that it does feel like you're managing a team, but you're still in the heat of the action. You're still in there, you're not from a zoomed out, view where you're just looking at a scoreboard and a strategy board.
I kind of pull back to kind of the so there was a card game that Fantasy Flight did called Blood Bowl Team Manager, which was it kind of a really zoomed out view. You're playing across the entire season. It's very much you're looking at the fate of your team overall. I didn't want that, but I wanted to have some elements of the, what you standing on the sidelines would be thinking as you're managing your team. You're thinking, okay, well, actually I need to save someone for third period because if I don't, then I'm going to be in trouble. And so that's kind of
actually. That part of like, for example, for Blood Bowl always bothered me where if I had extra players on the bench, they're really just there for deaths and injuries. It's like, oh, somebody's dead, got to put in someone else to replace them. I like the idea of, get players getting tired, letting them rest, switching them out for different plays. So that concept was always appealing. And this is something we talked about early on was the games like Blood Bowl, for example, really dealt with violence. It was like more like a skirmish game with a sports theme on the side. But like, I wanted it to focus on this, sports. Like this should be a sports game. Let's not worry about killing people off and all that stuff. It's just
absolutely.
You got to deal with strategy and things like that.
Yeah, it's a sports game with that kind of that fantasy framework around it, right? I mean, we don't go to like crazy high fantasy. I mean, early on in testing, people were sort of saying, oh, well, can we have like big dragons appearing and all this? It's like no, it's a sports game, but the benefit of it is really, for me, is you look at your different players and you go, okay, well, that player is a whopping great orc, so I know visually what they're going to be good at. That player is a nimble elf, so I can tell immediately what they're kind of going to be good at, and it just kind of it gives you a nice thematic hook to hang a lot of the mechanics off of. So yeah, that's how I approach the game, certainly.
Right. Well, that's something that we definitely had a lot of questions about. What Adam was talking about was the whole, the extra levels of violence being in the game. But I mean, personally, I think that the fatigue system that you implemented sort of mimics that very well. And if anything, and you do still lose players potentially, right, from the exhaustion and or the infractions. So you still can't depend on the same players non-stop in the game, because you might still lose them.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, the burning factor was looking up at Blitzball.
Got a slight audio issue here. Hang on a sec.
Yeah, it sounds cool though. Hold on.
Yeah, it sounds like you went robotic for a second there.
That was definitely my microphone, and letting that flip.
I think the microphone is on the fritz on your end or something.
Like
Hit a button or
Space Invaders.
yeah, it sounds like one of those old school arcade games that just has like a synthesized voice.
Or something with the announcers like, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, there we go.
Hold on.
Back.
Yeah, is that good?
Yeah, it's good.
We're back. Hey, cool.
You hit the Space Invaders button on your keyboard. Go back.
Yeah. So what was I was saying? So Blitzball, yeah. So having worked on Blitzball, designed it. I mean, you guys must know this. You work on a game, you design a game, and then it goes out into the world, and like over time, you get a feel for how people are playing it, and you realize it's maybe not the way you intended, or you put something in which seemed like a really minor thing, and over time, it kind of builds up. What I noticed was in Blitzball, you're not penalized for kind of just playing the game with 2 or 3 of your players. You might have a couple of your guys that just hang around in the backfield and don't really do anything. And so what I wanted to do here was, that's where the whole fatigue idea came from, really, was I want to make it so that if a player is not doing anything, that's kind of more of a conscious choice. I'm holding them back so that they can recover some fatigue and get back in. And then the way that kind of flashed forward was in this game, generally, when your players get knocked down or get, not so much knocked down, when they get exhausted or they collapse or they get sent off, it is generally because of your own choices rather than because of something your opponent's done to you. It is very much, I love putting like hubris into game design as like a mechanic. I want people to have things go wrong and then go, oh yeah, but it went wrong because I did this thing. Because I mean, as a player, I like that, because it means next time I play, I won't do that. I won't make that same mistake, right? I'm gonna be better next time. And it feels like it's something where you can have an impact in the moment, but feel later like you've either made a really good or bad choice, and course correct accordingly.
Right. Yeah.
I have a quick question. This is like just a random question I wanted to ask. I've asked this before. And all our talks about like fantasy sports games like that. Do you have a specific team that you're drawn to when you go to play a fantasy sports game?
So I've always been a fan of orcs. I like orc teams. I think I like orcs as a faction in any game I play. If I pick up a new war game or a skirmish game, I look for an orc faction. I think part of it comes down to Gorka Morka being released at a very formative time in my life, which was a classic Games Workshop, like Mad Max but with orcs kind of game. Yeah. And I think people love it or hate it, but I was there. I was right in for it. And so my long running Blood Bowl team has always been an orc team. Weirdly, the name of it got used for the Black Orc team that came out a couple of years ago, and that was a really weird. The Thunder Valley Greenskins, that was always my team, and it was really weird that it then got used for an official piece of product. Which
that was the orc team in the new box, right?
Yeah. Apparently, that's what happens when you work there. Your stuff just gets subsumed. It's my fault because I wrote them into the little background box outs, and then presumably someone saw that and thought, yeah, that's a cool name. But yeah,
so I really like the human faction in that box, the Imperial Noble team, because I always like high elves. But when that one came, I was like, oh, cool! Like, there's a fancy team that I always like fancy teams. So
yeah, absolutely. So yeah, no, for me, I like to be a bit brutal. I don't like to mess around too much with that sort of fancy long range careful plays. I like to just steamroll up the field and do some damage. That's kind of my thing.
We're totally different people, James.
It's fine.
I just want to eat sandwiches on the sidelines.
Well, I guess speaking of sandwiches, we could probably take a quick little break here and take a look at one of the teams we just recently revealed. Let me switch over here. Boop. All right, this will be going. So the Green Acre Grocers. We recently revealed these guys as a new add-on that you guys can get, a new team, which comes with everything you need to play them. So you got the 16 miniatures, you've got their player cards, their free agent cards, you got the AI dashboard for solo play. So let's take a quick look at just some of these characters here, because I love their art here. Let's see, who will we have first? We have Gladys Pebblebrook. She is a ranger on this halfling team. So the team is halflings, except for one player, who we'll get to in a bit. So I guess since we have James on the call this time, maybe we can dive in a bit deeper regarding the different player positions. So when you came up with Rangers, I mean, what's the thematic play there? What's the mechanics behind Rangers? And
Yeah, so this all kind of sprung out of a conversation we had really early on, where we wanted to diversify the teams a little bit more than they have been in. So for example, Blitz Bowl, Blood Bowl, when I've worked on those games, there are these very specific set, team builds. But what was interesting was that it was diverse across the different teams. So in Blood Bowl, the dwarf teams have runners, which very few other teams have, and so on and so forth. It's the thing when I was working on Blood Bowl in a few years ago, we tried to bring it together a little bit, but it never quite panned out. Whereas here we were like, we want to make sure we have 6 player classes that are represented across all the teams. And so we kind of figured out, it's kind of broken down into basically you've got 3 kind of lineman-ish type roles. So three classes which are fairly like bog standard players. They are reliable, they're dependable, they'll get the job done. And then 3 like specialists, the kind of they're really focused in a particular area. So the first group is your guardians, who are kind of your backfield support players. So they tend to be best back on the gate line, or playing defensively in their own half.
Such as
Sentinels.
Jemmy Lumpkin here. Sorry, I'm going to interrupt for a quick second.
Yeah, go for it.
Jemmy here is a guardian, so he's one of the ones you're talking about right now.
He's also,
Absolutely.
Yeah, he's a 4-time cranberry pie eating championship winner. Also,
He looks like it.
he's a little bigger halfling. But yeah, just to echo what James said, one thing we talked about early on was I'm pretty sure this is something that James presented to me, saying that he wanted to kind of diversify the concept of like linemen. The game. So we have, instead of having a ton of the same position on the team, maybe breaking them up into like minor specialties. So you have these linemen that are like, like you said, the guardian, he's like a lineman, but he's like more of a defensive lineman,
And of course, that all plays into the fact that because the miniatures are, designed to be used with other games as well, it was interesting trying to get things that hit both those things. This character is clearly a lineman, but we can in Myth and Gore split it so it goes, 2 or 3 different ways. And because again of the way team compositions are broken down, for example, in Blood Bowl, some teams like the halfling team is kind of dull in Blood Bowl, whereas here we've got all the different positions represented. Which I'm happy with.
They have a bunch of hopefuls, and then I think what was the new position? Hefty, yeah, the 2 hefties. And
yeah. So
speaking of hefty, we also have Jostin here, Jostin Whitley. He's a little hefty as well. Another ranger, actually. So sorry, go ahead. Yeah, you're talking about the guardians.
So guardians are like your backfield. Sentinels are like your frontline support. So they're the ones that kind of head forward, and they tend to have abilities that are about supporting other players, whether that's helping them get up or just getting in the enemy's face or protecting other players from tackles, that kind of thing. And then you have rangers, who are they're like a supporting runner character. So their job is to advance the ball up the field. They're not going to do it in a big flashy way. They're just going to kind of plod up and get the ball further towards the opposing team's bastion. And then your specialists you've got your striker, who is all about throwing. Your vanguard, who is all about sprinting, evading, dodging, going for the big score, and chargers, who just like hitting things.
The name sort of implies that, I guess. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, and actually, we did quite a bit of work, didn't we, back and forth on the names for the different classes.
It's difficult to think of unique names that weren't used anywhere else. And
yeah,
still got to avoid those connotations.
Absolutely.
The other weird one was the specialist, because some teams just have an oddball that doesn't really fit in positions. So it's like, let's just make them a specialist.
And then it's the kind of character who just that they don't ascribe to one of the traditional classes of player. They have their own way of doing things, and I mean, like the Lars Thunderwick on the Anvil's team is the example of that. He's like a charger, but more so, but kind of a glass cannon. He jumps in, gets himself out of his depth, but hits things in the way.
Yeah, kind of like this the tree man on this team too. Like he's a
Yeah.
previous specialist as well.
Yeah, so I was going to reveal him last, but since we're all talking about specialists, let's bring him out next. We got Brantler. He's the specialist on the Green Acre Grocers. By the way, let me just say I love the name for this team and the logo.
This was my Halfling Blood Bowl team originally.
There it is.
That was before the Pigeon Forge Pigeon Punchers.
Fantastic.
So I guess we were talking about Sentinels earlier, so here's another Sentinel. Here we got Chuck Shallot, great name.
It's the best name. Someone called that out. I forgot that we actually had that name in there.
And then another Ranger, actually, we got Rindle Creevy. He's got a little rhinoceros thing going on with his helmet there.
Yeah, this is how you had let Brady loose on naming things. I remember in Brook City there was a bellhop at the hotel named Buckles Mahoney, I think it was.
Yeah, I remember.
I love it.
And but last but not least, we have one of the Vanguard, I should say, on the team. I think she's the only one. Ruby Fields. So you were saying the Vanguards generally are the ones taking care of like up ahead. Is that it? Sorry, just to
Their
backtrack.
main things are like speed and agility. So whereas the Ranger is about kind of slowly, carefully advancing the ball, the Vanguard is about kind of sprinting, full pelt, dodging away from enemies and getting things across there. And in the case of the Grocers, it's just like they imagine the big pile of sticky buns at the other end's bastion, and they just go.
Yeah, I believe Ruby's flavor text that we had in the update recently was about her learning how to catch things really well because her mom was a baker and she kept throwing the bread at her and she had to catch it or something like that.
She's reaching for those baked goods.
Yeah. So she won't let go.
Always the receiver position. You want to get into a position, throw the ball. Often you see players like move them into the bastion and then they go and catch the ball that way, which is
That's my preferred play style, coming from a high elf background.
Yeah, but you just go back to Brantler, I guess, because he is such a unique character or player on this team. I imagine that he will indeed be the muscle where the halflings are generally not muscle.
Yeah, they're very much a team that kind of relies on teamwork for a start. They've got a few things. So the rules are all in flux still. We're still developing the rules because we didn't know for certain that they would definitely be in being unlocked. Mm-hmm. But yeah, they're very much they have teamwork. They kind of all pile in together and stuff. But yeah, you've got the tree man who is very much able to stand alone and cause a lot of carnage just by himself, really.
Yeah, and also
don't tire him out.
Yeah, I'm not overly familiar personally with the halfling team in Blood Bowl, but I know that just from seeing them in passing, they were very much kind of like a joke team, I guess, almost like comic relief. Well, I really like the designs we went here because I feel like we're taking the halflings seriously.
I won't speak for James because he worked for GW, but I've heard rumors GW hates halflings. I think they used to. I think a lot of people that work there now seem to like them because it's like But also halflings in Blood Bowl, they were kind of had this strategy where the tree man would throw the halflings. Like if you get a halfling ball, then you would take the tree man and throw the halfling down the field, and hopefully he survived. I've done it once. I did it one time. I felt great, but usually halflings are just they're fun. They're just like you want to be silly, and if you win, it's like, oh my god, I beat you with halfling. That's why I liked him, because I always like the underdog aspect where like I don't want to play the best team where it's like I have more inclination to win because I'm playing the better team. I'd rather be like, oh, I actually won. Isn't that embarrassing? I won with the halfling.
You want the bragging rights, right?
In Blitz Bowl, they are very competitive. Like
they are ridiculous in Blitz Bowl. My goodness, yeah.
Okay, let me switch back to our video streams here, and I'm just going to switch over the audio as well, because I think I have a slight lag when I'm using my desktop audio. 1 second here. This, and this. Okay, so hopefully that'll take care of the slight lag. Right. So, before we get back to some more questions, I guess I'll just go over briefly what's happened lately in the campaign for those of you who might have been sleeping or snoozing through it. Basically, we've added the halfling team, the Green Acre Grocers. So if you want them, you can pick them up as an add-on. Instructions on how to add add-ons are in the FAQ, so make sure you read the FAQ. Additionally, we've unlocked since our last stream, I believe, the Shulkra Doomsayers, which is another whole team that you guys are getting in your stretch goals box. They're not even an add-on; they're just in there.
That's like seven teams available now.
With the Scions of Disgrace, additionally, as an add-on, yes, it's 7 teams. And I don't know, I didn't prepare anything for the Doomsayers, but we want to talk about them briefly. Maybe just, what we expect they might be like. I know we're still in development, of course, but maybe if there's just something we already know for sure.
Yeah. Well, they're a team that we've been tinkering with for a while. And they're a team of kind of two halves. You've got your big, scary, bitey players who tend to be a little bit slower, a little bit tougher. They have more your Guardians and I think your Chargers as well. Whereas you then have the smaller, the little lizardy characters who are very quick,
slippery, perhaps.
Yeah. You've got kind of mix of different players. I think it's the team that's got Vanguard and Rangers, so it's a very offensive team, but also with a really solid line with those big chunky.
Yeah. They got an Echo.
Oh, they have an Echo now. Oh, that's odd.
Oh no! Is that me?
Echoing?
An
Echo coming from.
All right, you know what? Then I'll just switch the stream over. Then 1 second.
Sorry, guys. We're
still. I thought I figured OBS out, but apparently the setting that I thought didn't work. So we'll just backtrack a little bit.
We'll do it live.
Yeah. So apologies again if you're
hearing echo from a specific person, or if it's just everybody's echoing.
It should have been everybody at this point because I'd switched from my desktop audio to your individual mics, but apparently that's not good. So, right. So let's go back really quickly. For those who didn't understand what was going on, we had the Green Acre Grocers that were recently added as an add-on team. The Scions of Disgrace were previously available, so you can grab those as well. They're also part of the MVP pledge if you'd like to do that. But we were also talking about during this echo about the Shulkra Doomsayers, the lizard men team, the reptilians. So James was essentially touching about on their tendencies to be a bit more offensive because of the composition of the positions in the team.
But they're a team of two halves. They've got a very, very fast, nimble offense, but then also a very solid back line. And so depending on which players you put in, it makes quite a difference. That's one of the big things, really, is because you have a team of 8, but only 5 on the field at a time, you can kind of tailor within that to go, actually, well, because we're the aggressor this period, we're going to go all out on the offense and hope that we don't surrender the ball and let them come back at us. It's again, that's part of the strategy that I quite like.
Yeah, I think that if I was playing them, if I was like the aggressor, I would start with all the little guys on the field, and then once one of them scored, I'd replace him with a big guy just to kind of try to make up for it. But I feel like that's a good strategy with those guys.
Absolutely.
Great. So we're super excited to have those guys in there. You guys really worked hard to get them, but we got them. So thank you to everyone who pledged to make them a reality.
And the Gator Man too. We got that guy.
Yeah, I was gonna say we got the I can never Gatorith or Gator Wrath. I don't know. Gator Wrath, bro.
Not correct score.
So he's a big guy too. So very excited to play with him. He's exclusive as well. So if you want him, you gotta pledge for the campaign. And we're also slowly working on a swarm of Ratmen apparently. So. We got a couple of those in the bag. Looking forward to seeing what else we can grab. And also, I guess since James is here, we can talk about these briefly. I know they're still very much in development, but we also have recently started unlocking our bi-weekly unlocks. So we have the hazard cards, which I'm super excited about. That's probably my most anticipated thing. I briefly explained what they were like in the updates, but maybe you just want to touch upon it briefly, James?
Yeah, sure. I think they come back to kind of the whole ethos with this. I've noticed, I don't know, I never intended for this to be the case, but I keep making games that are really modular, and I really like that in a game. I really like the fact that So, for example, with Hellboy, the board game, which is like it's not quite a dungeon crawler, but it's like an adventure-y game kind of thing. And everything that is, you can replay it loads of times because everything is remixable.
Right.
And with Mythic Goal, we had that as well, where, you've got your 4 teams in the box. You've got, I think, 6 focus cards. So that's like 24 different variations of team you can play. You've got all the different rules for free agents and all the different things you can do to play around with that. And then what the hazard cards do is add in an extra bit of replayability. So if you've played a bunch of games, you've got your head around it, you've got your regular opponents. If you want to mix things up, you can start introducing these hazard cards, and they kind of you have a little deck of cards basically, and there's various things that can happen at various points in the game, which interesting events, which maybe throw things slightly out of kilter and make things a little bit more unpredictable.
Yeah, we have some themes apparently here that you can mix and match, I guess, so you can customize your hazard deck. We've got the crowds, we've got weather, natural disasters, and magic. So those should be exciting. I'm not sure which one I'm more excited about.
Magic's going to be fun. I'll say that much. But it's kind of it's a way for the players to tailor the game to what they want it to be. If you want to play a very serious competitive head-to-head thing, maybe don't use the hazard cards. If you want to have a game with a regular opponent, have some fun, just kick back and enjoy yourself, then bringing this sort of stuff in, it makes the game so much more thematic. It adds a lot of narrative to things, because there's something really cool about the unbeatable offense being suddenly broken because a chunk of magma from a volcano lands amidst them, right? That's pretty cool. That's a moment you're going to talk about.
Yeah, and you're playing fantasy sports. You got to have some weird stuff happening, right?
Well, that's kind of it. It lets you dial up the fantasy to wherever you want it to be.
Right. Yeah. Thus the customization, the modularity.
Yeah.
And speaking of additional ways of making things thematic, we also have the stadium cards, which we introduced. So that's very exciting as well. It's going to add a lot of flavor to league proceedings, I guess, is the original idea there. But you could probably slot it into one-offs, right?
As with anything in this box, all of it can be used in any way. So if you want to use the stadium cards in your exhibition games, like your one-off games, or in your solo play, and league play, you can do it. The aim of it is that when you play league play, when you play however many games in your league season, some of them will be at certain stadiums. So the big matches will be at your home stadium, kind of thing. And because the game already features like the home and away team differential, this just lends some more meaning to that, really. It means that if you've got the home team advantage, maybe you've got more fans, maybe they're giving you that little bit of extra push that you need to win. And maybe for example, playing at the Ruffians home pitch, things might get a little bit out of hand, things might get a little bit brawly occasionally. And again, it gives you the chance as the players to kind of dial up the theme and the narrative of the game as much as you want to.
That's awesome. So I guess before we get into taking some questions from the audience, I did have one last question that I know is probably one that's on a lot of minds. So we finally let people take a look at solo play via the beta rules and the TTS solo mod. So I know that solo mode has been a fun challenge for you guys, really trying to create an AI that goes above and beyond, right? So it's not just going through the rhythm, it's reactive, it's engaging, it's comprehensive. So is there anything you want to talk about, maybe shine some light about the process?
Yeah, sure. Solo play, we knew from the start we wanted to get this in here. So there were various decisions in the core design of the game that were like, well, if we do this way, it will make solo play kind of easier to work. But for me, the big thing was I didn't want to make an AI, the arcane intelligence as we call it in the rules. We didn't want to make an AI which is like really predictable. We wanted it to feel like it uses as much of the core rules as possible. So it feels as much as possible like you're playing against a human opponent, and that was a challenge. Because there is so much to think about in a sports game like this. There are so many things. Is this the right point to push my players to, throw in the gambit die? Is it the right moment to try to score? And fine-tuning and tweaking that has been a long journey, and there's still a way to go. We're still working on it, still balancing and refining it. But I think it's reached a point where it feels like you're playing Myth and Goal. You are very much playing the game against this mystical intelligence that's reacting to what you do, and then throwing little curveballs and surprises your way. And what I will say is massive thank you to people who have been playtesting it and helping us out, and
Yes.
ironing out those creases. And so there's still more to iron out, because as with anything, as soon as we take it out of testing, and you guys will know this, as soon as it comes out of testing, goes out to the real world, you get so much more feedback than you ever got in playtesting. And yeah, it's going to carry on, and I'm really excited about where it's going to be when it goes out to print.
Yeah, and you actually touched on a good point where the Myth and Goal, the core rules, has been in playtesting for quite a while now. The solo mode has literally just hit playtesting, so it's early in the development stages, and it's like the core is there, but obviously it's going through playtesting,
Yes,
and so you
of
can
course.
expect minor things to change, things to be smoothened out and everything like that. So what you're getting right now is the first taste of it. So
Yeah, and that's always a good caveat, because at this stage in any process in any game, it's going to be this is not final. The things are still changing and everything, but it's mostly the concept. We're really excited to show everybody here's the concept of how this is going to function. We're going to clean it up as we go. But
Yeah, it's like any game on Kickstarter, right? It continues to develop after the Kickstarter ends so that it becomes perfect. So we're going to keep working hard on it, of course. But
That's what I was going to say. It's one of the joys of Kickstarter to me, is that it lets the backers kind of get involved in that process,
Right.
and say, oh, actually, I think it would be better if it leaned this way or that way. And I think it's one of the big differences between doing a Kickstarter and just doing a big retail launch is you can fine tune it and again get so many more eyes on it than you normally would during just regular playtesting. And
yes.
in my experience, the games that come out that way tend to be a lot more polished than other ones. So I love the process. I mean, there are days when I'm kind of hit my head against the desk going, why doesn't this work? But overall, I think the hard work's worth it in the end.
Yeah. I think it's definitely going to shine because of all your hard work, all the great feedback we're going to get, and all the nonstop development, pretty much. All right. Well, I guess we'll jump into the chat and see what people are asking. So Dan Helliga first says, "So pumped to chat with you guys." Well, we're pumped to chat with all you guys. Thanks for joining.
Hello.
All right. So Legend Forge. Hello, James. Excited to see this continue to develop. A rules question. The recent rules development seems to have made a knock-on effect with fatigue regarding stand-up. The Dwarf Sentinel ability and the full tactical results feel a bit weaker compared to the new partial. So it's not a question, more of a comment. I don't know if you have anything you want to add or a comment on that.
Yeah, I think I can see where they're coming from. We made a bit of a call to tweak the way tackle was working, and part of it was because so previously a partial success on a tackle. I'm going to get technical here, so if you haven't been following along with the gameplay, just I don't know, grab a cup of tea or something. But so the partial on a tackle used to have a thing where the opposing manager then chooses whether they want to give their player a fatigue or knock them down. We wanted to remove that decision because it was one of the few times you were making a decision in the opponent's turn, and it wasn't screwing with the AI, but it was an extra little point of decision making for the AI to make, and so removing it made the AI system a lot cleaner and smoother. And that's kind of there's been a lot of that going on behind the scenes as we've been working on the solo mode gradually. Some changes we've been making to the two-player rules have happened because it makes solo play that little bit easier. And so what this has had, it's had a little knock-on effect, which is that the partial success effect for a tackle is in some places a little bit more powerful, but as you say, it also reduces the power of some abilities. And that is the nature of ongoing playtesting. We're going to test that. We're not going to knee-jerk. We're going to keep an eye on the feedback that comes in from it. If people would like to be more involved in playtesting, you can do so. We have a playtesting group. You can contact us through the Kickstarter page. I'm sure there are ways we can get the links out to people.
Yeah, I can always post it in an update, perhaps.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a closed playtesting group, and the thing is, we ask people who join it to consider carefully whether they want to, because it can be really tempting to say, yeah, I want to get on the playtesting thing, but it can ruin some of the fun of seeing the more polished thing that comes out later. It's like the whole thing, don't go to the sausage factory, right?
Yeah.
I know, I've had people over the years who have tried playtesting out and then said, you know what, actually, I just want to see the finished game because I want to enjoy this game. So I would much rather see the one that has gone through all that process, because if you've not done playtesting before as well, all you have to compare it to is like finished, polished games, and so you'll think, oh, what's going on here? This is a car crash. Whereas actually, that's more blood in training, less on the battlefield, right? So if you want to do playtesting and you're sure you want to do it, by all means get in touch. But yeah, be ready. Things are a lot uglier in the playtest room.
Playtesting is definitely something that's interesting.
It takes a bit of foresight, like you were saying,
Yeah.
because you have to see past like just the initial thing you're looking at. Look at the concept more and how to streamline this and make this more elegant, as opposed to just being frustrated that it's not working right now how you want it to.
Yeah, every game is ugly. Basically before it's released, right? It goes through lots of iterations and play testing, but it's a fun process if you've never been part of it.
Why I gave up on art, man. Sketches are ugly, and like you have to get through the sketching process to get to the final product. So.
The big eye opener for me was when years ago when I was working at Mantic Games, I had to I was dealing with, for some reason, I've got no idea why this fell to me, I had to commission a load of authors to write short stories for a little novella, and I got to work with some established authors who I knew really well, big fans of their work. And the first draft they turned in, I was like, what on earth is this? I edited like novella, short stories before. And it's like, oh no, because there's a process. That's first draft, then it gets edited and tidied up and all this. And because I'd never seen that, I was taken aback, and it kind of, I wish I hadn't seen it almost.
Shatters that illusion, right?
Precisely. But yeah, so as I say, the key thing that when we play test is we make a big effort not to knee jerk. We always look at feedback over time. We see how players adapt to things, because when you make a change to a rule set, there will be little knock-on effects. But the first thing you have to overcome is players who have been playing the game previously will play in a different way to people who are approaching that rule for the first time, like after the change. And so we have to kind of give it time to settle, and then we'll make a judgment based on that. So keep any feedback coming in. I put a thread on Board Game Geek for rules questions. I might do another one for like general feedback and the feel. So not so much about how does this rule work, but this feels underpowered or this feels overpowered now. I might get a thread going for that. And yeah, you can contribute there if that's helpful. But thank you for the feedback.
Yeah, if you guys haven't been yet to Board Game Geek, definitely check out Myth and Goals page there. Give it a like or become a fan of it. I believe is the term, so that you can also subscribe to it and see what.
Just be ready for some up to the minute cutting edge website design is all I'm going to say.
Don't comment on Board Game Geek. We all love it, but yes, it does have its.
My goodness,
you'll find exactly what you're looking for whenever you go.
What else we got? We got New Breed Creator here asking if we plan on putting out a solo playthrough. We do have a couple of content creators out there who have their hands on the solo TTS mod now, and they're working hard to produce a solo playthrough video for you guys. Hopefully it'll arrive before the end of the campaign, but if not, God forbid, we'll definitely share with you guys the moment it is ready. And you guys can take a look. You'll see how it plays. John Macaulay, what are the most significant changes to the rules, other than solo stuff, between versions 3.7 and 3.8? Which element of the game was the most difficult to get just right? So that's a lot of things to consider, I guess, in versioning. But I don't know if you have anything like that's major that comes to the top of your mind. Like...
Yeah. The most significant change to me between 3.7 and 3.8 is that the timeout marker now goes on your team faction card rather than sitting next to the board. Other than that, it's all minor stuff.
It's a visual appeal thing.
Absolutely. No, there were a few little tweaks and changes. I suppose one of the biggest ones is the way that stand-up works. So stand-up, at one point, was an action that you made. Then it came to when you activate your player, they stand up at the start and take one fatigue for doing so. Now at the start of your team's turn, all of your players can either stand up or recover one fatigue. And there's, it's for a start, it works in a sort of an administrative way in that you get all your players up at the start of your turn. It saves having to think about it later. But also it means that when a player is knocked down, they have the choice of kind of staying down and recovering their fatigue, or pulling themselves to their feet, not recovering that fatigue, and then carrying on, which in the games we played with that, it feels like it just feels a bit more thematic, and it brings in some different decisions and more interesting choices. Again, that will flash forward and have different effects on the game, which we will keep an eye on. But that's kind of the biggest change, I think.
Yeah, I like those kind of difficult decisions, man. That's what makes the games worth playing.
Absolutely.
decides whether to get up or just curl on a ball and just cry a little bit. And I guess
Playing the halfling team, maybe.
Those halflings will just stay on the ground the whole game.
Remove sneaky sandwich from pocket, take a bite.
Oh, it's a break time.
There's a good idea, James. That's a good idea for an ability, a halfling ability. Yeah. They stay on the ground, they recover 2 fatigue.
So this is an interesting.
Sorry, was there a part 2 of the question? Which element
it was what was the most difficult element to get right for solo? Not even so. Which element of the game was the most difficult to get just right other than solo?
I think off the top of my head, fatigue. Like balancing the amount of fatigue players can have, how you take fatigue, how you spend fatigue. That was like a minefield, because it's like kind of being in the shower. You got the hot and the cold. You're trying to get it just right. And I feel like we've landed in a pretty good place. For a while, it was like it wasn't meaningful. Like you had too much scope, and then it closed down too much and became too punitive. But I think it's ended up in the right place now.
Yeah, I think it definitely plays great. So Kevin S here has a question that's an interesting one, because I guess it's subjective, but how much easier to play / learn this game compared to Blood Bowl? He's only played base Blood Bowl out of the box, and that seemed too complex for me to get into. So
I will give you an objective answer. Lots. No, obviously it's subjective, but I think the thing with Blood Bowl is a game which has been around for a long time, and for a large part of its development, the rules have been honed by people who want to play it competitively at a high level, and so approaching it as a new player is daunting as hell. And I sort of describe Blood Bowl as having like this kind of learning curve. Like, it is so steep. Once you get up to here, the game is fantastic, but all of this time you're losing games that take 2 to 3 hours to play. And I know a lot of people who have tried it once and gone, yeah, no, thank you.
I would actually highly recommend anybody who's interested in learning Blood Bowl is to just play the video game. Like, you can learn very quickly playing the video game.
Absolutely.
I know I did. So, but yeah, I would say I would also give an answer that Myth and Goal is far easier to learn than Blood Bowl. I mean, I don't know. It's if you're comparing it to like Blitz Bowl, that's a more subjective argument, I think. But compared to Blood Bowl, I think Myth and Goal is far easier to learn.
To me, I wanted to pitch it between the two. Like, I want it to feel like, it's got Blitz Bowl's kind of clean, modern design, but a bit more complexity. And I feel like that's, I think, again, though, what's nice with Myth and Goal is you've got the modularity, right? So if you don't want to use focus and tactics and all that for the first couple of times you play, you can do that. You can play with just the players on the pitch, and you can even play without player abilities. You can just go off your player cards with their ability ratings, and learn the shape of the game in a couple of rounds, and be playing a still tactically satisfying game pretty quickly.
I taught this game to a few people relatively quickly, and Blood Bowl not. So, let's see here. Echo. Yeah, no. Okay, Carolina Gamer. What is planned for the next steps of refinement or development for solo mode? Also, will the AI objective cards be unique to each team's play style?
Yeah, so the next thing is we're just continuing to develop it and hone it down. We're happy now. So people would have noticed that there were some changes between the walkthrough video we did and then the cards that are now up on the TTS module. You've got the strategy boards have been refined a little bit, basically because we had a bit of an epiphany and we realized we could make things a bit more intuitive and a little bit more straightforward, a bit more open as well.
Yeah, and that was in the span of like a week. So things changed.
This is it. Things change quickly. Sometimes you just get an idea and you kind of go, and then in my case, you end up working loads of late nights, going, yes, I have it, I've got this, and then you test it loads and you iterate. I mean, all of that kind of, our development process is very testing led. We come up with an idea and then we take it to the table and play a bit, and we go back and forth. You can see in the background our old prototype of Myth and Goal on the table over there, which looks really ugly. This again, playtesting is an ugly process. But yeah, we spent most of last week sat at that table bashing out ideas. So the next kind of step is to carry on refining it and start bringing in more elements. I sort of see it as like when you make a cake. Okay, bear with me here. When you make a cake, you get your dry ingredients in a bowl, right? You get your flour, your sugar, whatever else. You make a little well and you crack in your egg, maybe your milk, and you gradually start mixing in from the center. You don't try to mix it all at once. You gradually incorporate, and that's how we design things. So we've got currently the demo which allows you to play one period with the AI anvils as the defenders. So the next step is we're now working on how they work when they're starting the period as the aggressors. And then when we well, let's flip it, let's get the ruffians in there. And we're kind of gradually doing that. We've got all these things sketched out, and we're just starting to gradually fill them in, test them, and make sure they work. So it's the objectives will be subtly different for each team. That's the basic framework now. And what will happen probably as we develop for more teams, the anvils one will change as well. But the main thing that will change is like the player priority orders on each objective, like which players will go for it. We were toying with the idea of having a really punchy, unique like objective at the bottom of the list, which is if there's nothing else to do, they will do this thing that is really characterful for this team. So the anvils will go and form a shield wall, or the ruffians will kick your teeth in, or whatever it might be. And that might come back in, but we want to make sure it doesn't break the flow and make it hard to play. So yeah,
well, I mean, it's a good answer. What else we got here? Can we have 2 experienced players?
Well,
go ahead.
Oh,
sorry, go ahead,
Scottie. I was going to also comment, because I know I've seen a couple comments about people watching a playthrough of somebody going through the AI thinking it looked like took a long time or is tedious. It's very important to note that while not only is AI, the solo mode still in development, but also playing on Tabletop Simulator is more challenging.
Playing anything on Tabletop Simulator is more challenging.
Tabletop Simulator is a very tedious exercise.
It's a blessing and a curse.
It's a very powerful playtesting tool because you can iterate very easily, and you can also get out there to lots of people quickly. But the drawback is that it's not a quick playing, fun watching experience. It's tedious to play. It's even more tedious to watch.
Yeah. What else we got? So any chance of 2 experienced players playing each other in video? Not enough gameplay videos out there. So right now we have, like I said, we have the content creators who did what they could with the TTS mod. We will eventually, of course, have more videos of maybe ourselves. Maybe I'll ask the brothers to play me or something. I don't know, but we'll have some of those.
Well, the challenge is people. The comment right there about experienced players. We're experienced players from various versions.
Yes, that's the other problem too. Like you'll notice that I
constantly changing through development, and so you're not going to be able to see like a really deep strategy forming yet.
Those are the last pieces of the puzzle for development. Once like everything's cleaned up, then it's go back over all the teams and make sure all their abilities are lined up.
Once the game's out there in print, we're going to do videos like crazy. And see which teams are the best.
I know that I think the video I did with Mark, I had already. I did one rule wrong from a previous version that I learned, so apologies for that. There's probably some confusion.
I do it, absolutely.
So it's the same comment about the solo run through being a little complex, and streamlining it would be good. So of course we're working on streamlining as much as possible.
That's the main focus. That's the main thing we're working on. I like a few solo games myself, and the last thing I want is for it to feel tedious and complex. So yeah, don't you worry. We're working on that. We're hammering that flat.
Yeah, and again, playing with physical components would be a lot.
The question I just said, James is a pro. The game is in great hands. You got nothing to worry about there.
I will say, we sit and play at the table like the solo mode. Again, doing it away from Tabletop Simulator is just so much easier.
Yeah,
so much easier.
And I will say, from my experience with earlier versions of the game, like I had fun with the game earlier this year, like in March when we were playtesting it. Like I liked it. It's totally different now, and it's way more streamlined. Like the game, it just keeps getting more and more slick. So the same's gonna happen with solo mode. It's just gonna keep getting refined and streamlined. So
yeah.
So I very much approach design like this is my thing. I'm just gonna come up with weird analogies for design. Okay, so baking a cake, sure, but also I see it as almost like pruning a bonsai tree. So we let the game grow out and then we cut back and then we kind of find the shape of it. That's kind of how we do things.
Yeah. We have Daniel here saying the Scions. Zombies are typically slow, shambling, and unathletic. They also don't weigh that much because of their flesh being not there. How do you counteract these disadvantages in the game?
That's a great question, actually. So we've been working on the first draft of their rules lately, and so Sophie, who's the other half of Nudie Cat Games, has been doing her first draft of them, and she's come up with some really fun ideas. One of the main things with the zombies is in the game. So this doesn't answer your question. This kind of goes the opposite way. If they get exhausted, they fall apart. and they get taken back to the encampment to be rebuilt, basically, and then they kind of gradually come back up and can get back in there. But the thing that really makes them feel good on the field is that they have kind of the zombie horde thing going on. So the more of them that are in an area or in a row, the more dangerous they are. So one zombie by itself is not all that, but when you get multiple zombies coming in at once, they can be really quite scary.
So would that be something that you would say is comparable, perhaps, to like the shield wall ability on the dwarves, where the more there are in a row, they have a better stat?
Various bonuses because you got the two different types. You got zombie rangers and
sentinels.
Sentinels, I think that's Guardian and Sentinels. That's it. And so they have different sort of variations on that rule, which are thematically similar, and they all kind of trigger off having other zombies of any type in that area with them. But it's a fun, really thematic, characterful thing. Sophie was cackling with evil glee as she was writing those. To be fair, most Fridays she cackles with evil glee anyway. So
I guess we touched on the Scions briefly. We did touch on the Doomsayers as well briefly. Maybe we'll just run through the other teams and you give me a quick like 1-sentence pitch about how you feel about them, what they play like, that sort of thing. So. The Green Acre Grocers, I know they're still in dev, and we touched on them briefly, but you want to maybe reiterate what you're aiming for?
They've got a lot of heart, they are very much, they're plucky, they don't give up. It's kind of that whole thing, like, in the Lord of the Rings, the reason that your hobbits are great, because they just go, they just do things. That's kind of where the Grocers are, right? They make up for a lack of, like, innate skill with just lots of teamwork and camaraderie and general goodness. Also a tree man.
Tree man.
That's the ace in the hole.
We got the Durnhold Anvils, right? Dwarves. What about them?
Yep. So they are a team that very much favours defensive play. They don't go anywhere quickly, but they tend to. They're quite resolute. I mean, people will have seen them because they're one of the teams that's in the Tabletop Simulator mod. But yeah, they can hit hard and they can take quite a hit, but don't expect them to be running many balls in.
Oh yeah, that actually brings up a good point. A question that I have for you, just your opinion on the matter. Speaking of specialists, like Lars, for example, is the exception to the typical dwarf rule. He's fast. Would you consider a specialist to be someone that kind of breaks the mold of a typical player in the team? Like they're a specialist because they're different?
I think so. Well, the way I sort of see it is like, in Mythball, there are the traditional classes that are like, you learn to play in a certain way, and the specialist are one who wants to go, no, gonna do it my way. And I think that it's a fun little place to play around in, right? Because they can all be kind of unique and fun.
The West Ark Ruffians.
They're the orcs, so they're the best.
Well, I know Steve, you like the best now.
Definitely was a little bit of unintentional bias. Like we had to nerf them a few times in testing because I just accidentally made them too good. No fault of my own. No, they are very much. They're an aggressive team. They like to get up in your face. Like their Sentinels have an ability which is where if they end the run action in an area with an enemy player, they don't take fatigue for it. So they tend to go in there, and they're a little bit dirty. They like cheating and doing things a little bit deviously.
And the Aetherian Sapphires.
It's the best. They are very much, they're a running team. They're all about running through the enemy lines, like ethereally leaping over them, dodging out of the way, scoring big. Let's not talk about how they deal with being hit back. Let's just hope they don't.
Let's just focus on how good they look.
Oh, my
Absolutely.
Shiny armor. And last but not least, the Belhurst Imperials.
Yeah, so this is an interesting one because a lot of the time you see the human team as like the bog standard, slightly boring team. We didn't want to do that, so we've kind of made them. They are a passing play team mostly, so that they are all about the positioning your players and moving the ball. They focus on let's play this like football, right? Let's actually move the ball up the field. They've got a vanguard, they've got a ranger, they've got a striker, even got.
I think they have like the best mix of positions. Yeah. They have a very, very well-rounded team.
Absolutely.
They actually they say, "Hey, come on, guys, let's play this as a sport. Let's play by
Let's
the
follow
rules.
the rules, guys. Come on.
Well, their charger has an ability which is like a taunt, so it's like they can do the tanking, they can pull enemies into their area.
Right.
So whereas a lot of the chargers in other teams have rules that are all about just laying the boot in and causing some pain, they're doing it tactically, and it's so they're the ones that are trying to play it like you say, like a proper sport.
Well, okay, they sound pretty awesome. I can't wait to try them. Well, I guess we're coming up on the hour, so we're gonna call it a day here. But before we sign off, James, is there anything else you'd like to say or comment on?
I would want to call out real before James gets the last word here. Someone had a comment here that said that the stamina and push your luck system was genius. So I want to call it out.
Yes.
And also someone wanted to know about the Ratman team, which is not fully unlocked yet, but if you had any thoughts about it.
If it happened, I mean, can you imagine? I think they are the sneaky, devious team. They're the ones that are going to be constantly trying to bend the rules, paired with a couple of very quick players. So they'll be wanting to score quickly and then stab you in the back before you can score back.
Oh. Now they might be my favorite. I don't know.
She wants to be your favorite. Maybe I can though.
I'll let you know once I give him a shot. But James. Any parting words? Anything you want to say to the audience? Any other things you want to touch on that we didn't touch upon? Maybe.
Yeah, I think the main thing I want to say is, thank you to those of you who have been backing this, who have been supporting it, talking about it, playing games, playtesting it. Massive thank you to the playtesters. It's been a challenging project because, as I say, I've worked on several sports games and I wanted to do something different and new. And it does feel a little bit like trying to reinvent the wheel sometimes, but I think it feels like it's really been worth it. And, development continues. I'm really excited to see where it ends up. Even over the next few weeks, because we're currently working on a whole bunch of new stuff for it, which is being rolled out into testing as we speak. And so just massive thank you, and thank you to you folks for letting me come and write your game for you.
Thanks for doing such a good job.
We're glad to have you on board, man. Yeah, it's an amazing game so far. And it's not even finished, so can't wait to see the finished product. Sadlers, anything you guys want to say before we sign off?
Just want to echo James said. Thanks so much for backing. Thanks for joining us today and hanging out and asking us questions. We love talking about the game. We're excited about it, and we hope to see the rest of those Ratmen get unlocked.
Yeah, thanks for backing.
We should just drop a big picture of cheese in this Kickstarter page. All right. Well, hey, on that note, thank you everyone again, yes, for joining us and for backing. We really appreciate it. And we can't wait to show you what comes next. So until next time, we'll talk to you guys in the comments section. Take care, everyone.
Yeah.
Bye.